Today on the Clean Power Hour, the machine to speed the energy transition, Tesla goes all in on storage, and you should care. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. Welcome to John Weaver, my co-host, the commercial solar guy.
Hey everybody, how you doing this week? Tim, how are you? Hope you're doing well.
John, I am good, but I think you are a little better because you are the new proud owner of a Tesla Model Y, and we're going to talk about that. I hope you're smiling. Yes, you are. You are smiling ear to ear. Yes. I think it's wonderful. I want to hear about it.
Cool car.
So before I give you the headlines, John, what is it like to own a Tesla Model Y?
Well, every time I get in the car, I'm really happy just because I know that, I'm doing the right thing. But it's also a learning curve. It's a new car with a new technology, and all my cars have been decades old prior. And I have weird things like a backup camera and voice recognition and a car that if you pull down on the right stalk 2 times will drive itself. I brought my friend in the car, my business partner, Benji Bora. He's our general contractor. And he goes, "John, I'm scared." I said, "Yeah, so am I. But this is happening anyway, Benji, so we just got to get used to it." So it's sweet. It's a good car. It's quiet. It's fast. It's really fast. And it's a nice hatchback. It's actually for the utility that I wanted. It's exactly the vehicle I want. A big, giant back area. I can fit my bike in it. I can sleep in it. And I'm going to go camping. Like we're going to be doing one of these shows from the top of a mountain in New Hampshire next time. I can figure it out because it'd just make me feel like a better human being if I'm driving up into the beautiful mountains of New Hampshire to camp and climb a mountain, if I'm coming up in a clean car and not filling up the air with gunk. So it's really important to me. It's something I wanted to do for a long time. And as a commercial solar sales guy, at the end of the call, when the customer's like, "So you want $1 million from me, huh? Well, why should I give it to you?" And one of my little line pitches are going to be that my car runs on solar electricity. So I'm walking the talk along with you, customer. And that matters a huge amount to me. Sorry I went too long, but I've been telling all my friends about this car. So you're just going to have to deal with it, Tim.
It's all good. Love hearing about electric transportation. It is the future. If you don't own an EV yet, you will sometime in the next 10 years. The writing is on the wall. And that brings us to our headlines. We have a surprise announcement. Jigar Shah is coming on the show October 6th on the Solar Podcast. So look out for that. You can register for that at cesnrg.com/podcast. We're going to do a live Q&A with Jigar talking about Sterling, Illinois, where he grew up, the Sterling, Illinois Walmart solar project. It's going to be wonderful. And then we're going to recap real briefly Battery Day because that is such a big event. That's the Tesla Investor Day. We're going to talk about Waze for the power grid could help unlock 500 gigawatts of renewables. I'm so curious what that is. Array Technologies going public? ? Could it be? I think it could be. The age of renewable energy majors. Orsted goes long on solar. That's the well-known wind developer Orsted from Denmark. They're getting into solar. Walmart Canada orders 130 Tesla semis. The semi is coming. The electric semi is coming. And Hornsdale delivers record profit. We'll probably touch on a couple other stories. Hornsdale is the big battery in Australia. I see a theme here, but anyway, I'm going to quickly do a screen share, John, so people can see exactly. Before I do that, I better get to the right screen because then I lose it. Here we go. All right. Our friend and colleague in the solar industry, Jigar Shah, currently president and co-founder of Generate Capital, is going to come on the Solar Podcast. Thank you, Jigar, for making time for us. And we are going to be breaking down speeding the Midwest energy transition and talking about Sterling Solar. So you do have to register. It's free. We can accommodate up to 100 people. So please go to cesnrg.com/podcast podcast. And then I also want to promote my event with Kimberly Centera of TerraPro Solutions. If you don't know about TerraPro and you're developing utility scale or small utility scale solar, you want to know about TerraPro. They are the real deal. They will help you with all of your real estate related development and risk management. All right. So, John, last Tuesday was Battery Day.
Yeah.
I watched the event, not from my Model 3 or Model Y, which was most of the audience. That was kind of cool. It was like a drive-in theater. And if you just Google Tesla.com Investor Day, Battery Day, you'll find the recording there. It's a couple hours long, right? It's a lot of content. And so you also just need to go to YouTube and Google, and there's a lot of great YouTubers that are breaking down in great detail. But what were the takeaways for you, John?
I really enjoyed seeing how the manufacturing processes will evolve, leading toward factories that cost 65% less per product capacity. So I mean, first off, there are a whole bunch of items, but one of them that really stuck with me is that, first, way back in the day, Elon Musk said, when we build these factories, these are alien dreadnoughts. These are machines. The factory itself is a machine, and the machine needs to get better. And we're going to make a machine that makes machines. And if we get really good at making these big machines, our little machines will just shoot out of them. He once joked that battery cells will be made faster than bullets coming out of a gun. And I think that fundamentally, there were a couple of items, but that one was really huge, because if this guy figures out how to just drop a giant battery factory, because he's already done the designs and he can drop 6 to 8 of them around the world, that right there, he's going to take over this game. And if he's that far ahead of the other manufacturers in shrinking the size of the factory and shrinking the cost of the factory, the capital necessary, and he can just start boom, 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 dropping down these manufacturing monsters and just outputting batteries, our issue will fully be on the scaling up our mining side. And we'll just have to learn how to feed Elon's machine. And he's even buying his own rights to lithium now so that he can extract it himself and remove the other lines. This company is really just going to set them up to dominate the industry, because they're the first who's really going to be a truly vertically integrated. And this is literally from digging stuff out of the dirt through selling the value-added, high-margin car on the back end. Batteries don't make as much money per unit on a margin standpoint, but that car, man, I'm happy paying those extra points for it, because it's a car, and that's what Elon wants to sell, because that's where the big money is, the good margins. And so shrinking the building size, shrinking the building cost, that was a big one. And there were a couple others, and I could talk for a whole hour if you let me, Tim. Be careful.
Yep. The machine that builds the machine. So they are becoming manufacturing experts. He emphasized that several times. It's easy to build a prototype. It's very hard to mass produce a viable, resilient, robust product. And it's interesting, John. I've had a real change of heart. Even though we've talked about storage a lot on the show, I have had a shift because of digesting the Battery Day content and all of the other battery experts who are breaking this down, and the Sandy Munros. If you don't know about Sandy Munro, check him out. It's
great.
It's Munro, and he is a manufacturing expert out of Detroit. Grew up in the auto industry, worked for Ford. He's a tool and die maker. So he knows how to make metal parts, and he is just jumping up and down for joy about Elon's battery. They're doing this. It's almost the size of, a beer can. The battery cell that they're making is ginormous. And so it is transformative. But grid batteries are really the long game, I think, John. Electric cars are important. We gotta decarbonize transportation, and Musk is going after that. and that's very important. But batteries for the grid are so important. And I don't like to admit how intermittent solar and wind are. It's not my favorite thing about renewable energy. But once we get grid scale batteries that are affordable, that just completely solves the problem. And the writing is on the wall that lithium batteries are the solution, and the near term solution anyway. So it's coming.
Yeah, there's another item in there that was big for me, a really big actually. It was the battery as structure, where they, instead of having a battery pack that sits inside the car, the battery pack itself is constructed in a way so that it's a fundamental and important piece of the car's strength. And so the steel of the literal battery cells is part of the lower body strength. And I watched a video where Sandy Munro took it apart and talked about it. And obviously he didn't have a car with this, but he spoke about it. And it interests me for not even because of cars, because we've sort of kind of figured out how to make cars and batteries work. We're in the beginning stages of it. But there are two industries where we've not done anything significant yet with energy storage. And it's flying and large shipping. And these two things, there it is. That's it right there, where they're using the battery cells as structural batteries as part of the car. Now imagine if you have a giant ship and it's 1,000 feet long. And instead of having a battery pack sitting in the middle of it, the outer layer of the ship is composed of cells. And maybe that's a bad idea because you don't want rocks breaking through the ship, but these people know how to make a ship that doesn't get punctured often. And imagine if the ship itself is a giant battery, or imagine if your airplane wing is made out of battery cells. Maybe if the airplane body, the outer shell is battery cells, and then it just has a giant hollow inside.
Yep.
Batteries, 747s are going to fly on electricity. And I think battery as a structure is going to be a thing that's part of it. And I think it's going to be an important thing. And so when he said battery as a structure, I've been thinking about this concept for a while. But of course, I'm not a manufacturer building things. I am an assembler of solar projects. And but man, when I saw that, as soon as he said it, my heart, I was like, yeah. Man, I even tweeted. That's all I tweeted. Battery as structure. That was it. I was just so excited to hear that term. And it was like, oh, he just did something magical. And that right there dropped the price of a car 10, 15%, the battery pack price. And I think that technique will be applied far and wide as designers start to conceptualize what they're working with and learn to touch it and learn to be in it. Because these are new things. So you just drop a square and throw it on a car. That's Gen 1 design. Gen 10 design is where the square is the car, is the battery, and everything is integrated. And I was just happy to see it. And if Elon is that far ahead of other people, I feel for him. At least now they have some marching orders to chase. And there's others who are looking at this technique. Cadle, the world's largest battery manufacturer, the Chinese group, they're talking about battery as the car in different structures. So it's not just Elon's team that are thinking this. And I think it's going to drop prices further and allow integration in places that we hadn't really fully considered yet, saying, oh, it can't happen. That's not true anymore. Battery as a structure. Awesome.
So when you check out the real presentation by Elon Musk, at the very end, he gave a cautionary message to other auto execs and manufacturers. And he says, I've been talking myself blue in the face, trying to tell them how to get on this train, and they're not listening. And I just love it that he's really laying down the gauntlet here. And all of the analysts who know anything about electrification of transportation are completely on board that Tesla's now accelerating and pulling away from all of the other EV manufacturers with this vertical integration. You mentioned getting into mining, right? They're going to get into lithium mining. They're going to make their own batteries. They're still going to buy batteries from Panasonic and Samsung. and CATL, because they are gobbling up batteries as fast as they can. And then they're making their own cells now, and they'll be eventually probably selling batteries to the other manufacturers who have been very slow to get into the game. Batteries are a very limiting factor, though, for electrification of transportation and for putting batteries on the grid. So this is a major bottleneck and a major thrust for innovation that is going to really open the gateway. It's going to open the floodgates for wind and solar.
Yeah, man, batteries are huge. There's so many different things from that presentation from Battery Day that caught attention. How they're going to get directly into the mining of it in Nevada. That means the product's going to be mined right there. It's going to go to their factory. How they're going to build this new press that squeezes the full back end of the car in one piece of metal. And then put the batteries inside of it. How they're going to speed up the manufacturing of batteries. How they're going to make it so, they have that new battery cell size. I think it's the 4860. And, it's almost as round as it is tall. And, how that integrates and make things more dense and lowers efficiency. We're seeing learning curves ongoing right now in so many different ways. We're seeing learning curves in areas that didn't even exist 5 years ago. And that's what one of the things about innovation is that you can't predict the innovation. You can't predict where it's coming from, because some of the things that are going to happen, you haven't even invented the predecessor that needs to occur before that thing can happen. And that's, we're seeing that with this factory, with the way Elon's moving. And he suggested battery packs at like 50 to 60 bucks per kilowatt hour. Even the more aggressive groups who have these curves, like Bloomberg and everyone else, they say, okay, batteries are going to fall on this learning curve at this % per year. And they had like $100 per kilowatt hour for the industry average in a year or 3. Elon says in 3 years, he's going to be at half that number. He just messed up all their numbers. So what it's probably going to be is that Elon's at half and everyone else is at 100. And that stock price, that smart purchase you made there, Tim, that stock price is going to keep on hopping. Because if there's this one guy who keeps selling out every single day, that guy's going to make some money.
I don't own a Tesla yet, but I own some Tesla stock, and it's incredible that my children still aren't excited about that I gave them Tesla stock for Christmas last year. But anyway, let's move on.
Yep.
Waze for the power grid. I'm going to share my screen. A story by William Driscoll.
Yeah, I wanted to point that out. So Will Driscoll, who I've known for years digitally, we first met when I wrote for Electrek, and I worked with Fred over at Electrek.co, and we chatted there. And then when I moved to PV Magazine, he came to join me. And very recently, he unfortunately he's no longer writing with PV Magazine, but he still wants to get certain knowledge out there. And his higher level writing, I totally love. I love reading these essays, these thought pieces. And so I told him, I said, listen, I would love to see some of your stuff on my site, because 1, I could use more good knowledge, and 2, it'll motivate me to get on the ball a little. And so this is his first article for Commercial Solar Guys. So William Driscoll, ladies and gentlemen, showing up here. So, but still though, it's a cool article, and it's really important to what we're talking about. It's less applied to our day-to-day business, you and I, Tim, because we got to build stuff and we're on site. This is power grid stuff, and neither of us happen to be building transmission. But what this article talks about is how important transmission adjustments, even fine tunings, can be to increase the volume of solar and wind on the grid. Right now, because of congestion, because of how, just how things bang up against each other as they move through the power grid, just like traffic on a street, there's hundreds of gigawatts of projects that are being held up in interconnection queues. And a couple of gentlemen did an interview, and one of them was actually Mr. Shah that Will covered. And they talked about these 3 specific technologies that could be used to apply to the power grid that aren't power grid upgrades. And so one of them is called, which was jokingly called, Waze of the power grid. It's more technically called advanced topology. And a topology is and it's not my expertise. I've always wanted to know what this word means better and better, and something I'm going to learn better. But topology is when you got a giant map of your power grid, you got a map of your usage, you got a map of your generation, and you have to figure out how to do the dance of bringing all that stuff together. You know, all your power plants coming this way, all your homeowners, your businesses, your car chargers, all these different pieces have to swing together, and you're sitting there at a keyboard and you're doing a map. And so the topology, the management of the energy movement is a huge issue. And what this article stated is that Waze, using this concept of Waze, of moving energy in a more modern manner, and it's not magic, it's just our grid is old, but moving electricity in a more modern manner can, without any major upgrades, just some computers and software and education, we can get 20 to 25% more electricity moving through the same exact hardware by people looking at their Waze app, so to say, and saying, oh, this road's busy, let's do it this way. And it's just the nature of our power grid. It's an old, big, clunky, beautiful piece of infrastructure that keeps us all alive. But we started building it in the year 1900. Oh, actually the late 1800s. And so it's, you know, it's clunky. And there's these other technologies, you know, there's many ways to make the power grid stronger. And, you know, batteries, if we don't fix our power grid, we're just going to end up deploying too many batteries and be less efficient. The most efficient way is to have some batteries and some power grid upgrades to help shift around all this clean electricity that we have, this nuclear, this water, or this hydroelectric, this wind, and this solar. Those 4, nuclear, wind, water, solar, we can do everything. We can take over Mars. Mars will be ours. Mars, the moon, and maybe not Venus because it seems a little warm there. But you know, we'll have an amazing power grid if we can just figure out how to move it a little bit better. And so that's really what this article is about. It's talking about those technologies, and it's interesting. I'm totally, you know, I have no idea how to deal with the politics of transmission, but this article shows there's ways around it. At least 20, 25%. You know, it may not get us to 100%, but it's a piece. It's a piece of the puzzle, and I thought it was cool. So good job, Will.
Excellent. Our next story is that Array Technologies is going public. And if you don't know who Array Technologies is, they are the #2 global solar tracker manufacturer based in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where yours truly grew up, on Roma Street by the University of New Mexico. My dad was a professor at UNM. I have many fond memories of skateboarding around that campus as a punk teenager. And but Array makes a great product. Their whole approach is single module and portrait, and they've been private. They're going public through the old-fashioned, just raising money and going for it. And it says here that they're the #2 solar tracker, behind Nextracker and ahead of PV Hardware. Most American solar companies don't even know about PV Hardware. I got to know them a little bit recently. They're a Spanish tracker maker. And Wood Mackenzie has a new report out though on trackers. You can download the summary for free. Only the summary. They have a full report. So anyway, trackers are on a tear. They are growing. I think they grew 69%, something like that, from 2018 to 2019. So, and we certainly saw that shift happen here in Illinois. In 2017, all of the utility scale designs we were looking at were fixed ground mount. And then at the end of 2017 into 2018, it all switched to tracker. And Array, for some reason, Array really dominates the community solar space here in Illinois. They have upwards of 80% of the market. And I think Nextracker is focused more on large utility scale. It's hard to get them to give you a quote on a small utility project. But anyway, Array Technologies is near and dear to my heart. All right, John, we've got a bunch of other stories we want to cover. So,
I want to buy some Array Technology stock, by the way. I just wanted to throw that in there real fast. I'm throwing down $1,000. Totally. I got to get some industry exposure. I mean,
yeah,
this is it. It's a good opportunity.
I agree. All right, so Maine gets into the solar game. Tell us about that, John. This is a great story.
Well, I mean, so Maine's been working at solar. It's a complex state politics. You know, a lot of people don't really, it's just complex. So Maine has really been bumping it recently since they shifted from one governor to the next. And this most recent headline was for a batch of large utility scale projects, about 400-ish megs worth, if I'm not mistaken. And let's see, so solar got, yeah, and there were a little bit of wind in there, I guess, but I really like the solar piece, and specifically one of the projects bid 2.9 cents per kilowatt hour, and it's not noted in the GTM article, but if you go to the article at the Press Herald, they said that the bids ranged from 2.9 cents to 4.2, and these were all projects that won. But I was really interested in a 2.9 cent per kilowatt hour solar power project in sunny Maine. I mean, it's Maine. We're Canada. We're north of Canada. I bet you 90% of Maine is north of the lowest angle of Canada. I don't actually know that answer, but Maine is like the great Northeast. It is it's cold. It's got long winters. It's people in Maine, you don't mess with people in Maine because they got a lot of woods if you mess with them too much. And so it's Maine. It's a giant place. It's still wild. And how the heck are they getting solar at under 3 cents a kilowatt hour? Just a few years ago, that was a record global price. Well, I don't know how, but I know that their labor costs are probably agreeable. There's lots of open land and the power grid is empty, so that helps. I also wonder if, the fact that the summer days in Maine are 15, 16, 17 hours long, if these are single axis trackers on these large utility scale projects, and by the way, the farther north you go, the less single axis trackers work because of the angles. But if these are single axis trackers and they're facing due west at 9 p.m., 9:30 with sunlight up, are these projects just consuming the evening power grid bump? And how much more money could these projects be earning because of so far north? It makes me think that solar power located way north, if it during the summertime could be pumped to the south in the same geographic location. And so instead of just shifting solar power east and west during the summertime, Maine solar electricity can be shifted south because they're going to have sunlight at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 p.m. And, down south, the days last longer, but it's not like north. I mean, the sun comes up in my place during the peak of summer, the longest day, the sun comes up in the middle to late 4 o'clock hour, and it doesn't go down till almost 10. I mean, and I'm hours south of Maine. So I'm really interested in that. I wish I was a Maine solar power developer looking at that spreadsheet, and it'd be an interesting spreadsheet to see how they get paid for that super late electricity. And I wonder if it has an effect on that 2.9 cents. So cool to see Maine, man. Maine is awesome.
Yeah, a couple of developers that we work with here in Illinois have mentioned Maine to me recently. So this is a real market, and one of the niches is 5 megawatt AC, 7 megawatt DC. So these are good sized solar farms. A 7 megawatt DC solar farm is 35 acres. And that's a nice sized project. Maine, I would imagine, is very rocky. I'm guessing there's a lot of ground screw technology used in the foundations there. I don't know, but I'm curious. I know it's a beautiful place. I've never been, My brother just went there on his honeymoon. Congratulations, Ty Montague,
Hey.
for getting married and going to Maine. Um, so yeah, excited to learn more about the Maine solar market. You know, they have an RPS right to go 100% renewable by 2050. They already get 80% of their power, I think, from hydro, though, don't they? It's
And they have offshore wind. So, I mean, it's going to be easy-ish for Maine,
yeah,
but they do want to do something about their heating and cooling because they are very cold. And so even though their electricity use is, cleaner, they want to figure out how to manage that natural gas usage. And so that's going to be something that their numbers will scale. And they're pushing heat pumps very, very heavily. So if you're a Maine listener, uh, business or personal, you need to look up what a heat pump costs and to install, and then what the incentive is, because the state of Maine really wants you to move to heat pumps. No questions asked. They'll make it almost a free installation with the way the dynamics come together. So that Maine's pushing hard.
it's a very rural state. The population of Maine is 1.3 million people. I think I looked this up a couple of days ago. So it's one of the most rural states in the U.S. And it's up there with New Mexico, where I grew up, in terms of its low density of people, and that's awesome. We like nature. We want there to be places where there's lots of nature and less built environment. And so, no, don't freak out. We're not going to pave over the North Woods with solar panels. This is going to be a blip on the screen, really, in the greater scheme of things. Okay, we got to move on.
Yep.
The era of the renewable energy major. Orsted, the world's offshore wind giant, gets serious about solar. This is a cool story. I've been watching Orsted for a number of years, and because I have strong ties to Scandinavia, Orsted is a Danish wind developer, and you told me that they were operating in the US. I think of them as a very European-focused wind developer. But now they're developing big scale solar in the US, especially in Texas. They've got some multi-hundred megawatt projects in Texas. I think, this story calls out a 460 megawatt Permian Energy Center in West Texas. I love it that they use these names that are affiliated with the fossil fuel industry. The Permian Basin, right, is a well-known geologic formation where there's a lot of oil and gas. Well, guess what? Now there's going to be a lot of solar there. and Texas is just on fire. Luckily, not literally like California, but the solar industry is exploding in Texas. I heard that Texas is going to be a bigger market in 2020 than in California. They're going to knock California out of position 1.
Yeah. I mean, so Orsted used to be known as Dong, as a Danish natural gas company. They were a fossil fuel company.
Yep.
And they were known as Dong, and they were a great company, very big, and they literally sold off all their fossil fuel assets in order to move toward being a wind company. And then now they're moving into solar and storage in the US. This is an example of the key piece that you said, an energy major making a shift. And it's going to keep happening. Shell keeps talking about this big shift, and they have invested in solar. They have invested in wind. They even tried to make solar panels way back in the day and pulled back out of it. Total, the electric utility from France, has been buying wind. I mean, Total bought half of SunPower, and they're buying assets. So it's, these gas and oil companies, they see that their pricing is suddenly under pressure. They no longer have the natural monopoly that they had. A guy like me who drives 15 to 20,000 miles a year now owns an electric vehicle. And I live in a market where my car has an equivalent miles per gallon of like 175 versus a gas vehicle. And it's like, okay, guys, never going to use you again. I drive past the gas station now and I feel bad because I know the people at the gas station. So now I just go in and buy eggs, hard-boiled eggs, because they taste great there. But I don't buy gas from them anymore. And that was really funny every single time I drove by this week. So these companies are making moves, and seeing somebody as big as this who has true fossil fuel DNA is it's a harbinger of things to come. And they're just the first. There will be others, and it will see massive shifts of capital and financeability will come into our industry. The amount of money we spend on fossil fuels annually is huge, trillions, and now we're going to spend it on us, and that's why we build solar, because that money's shifting.
Another good example of a utility company that is making the shift is Engie. That's a French utility. And they made a strategic decision a couple years ago to segue from fossil and nuclear technologies to wind, solar, and storage. And they're one of the largest solar developers globally. I think they're the largest IPP globally, the largest independent power producer. And it's the writing is on the wall that these major fossil companies see the opportunity not only to make a profit, but to do good for humanity. And it's a perfect win-win. The economics are at our back now, John. We don't have to beg, borrow, and steal to find a way to find our path forward in the renewable space anymore. Gravity is on our side. The flow of capital is like I liken it to a tide. There's just nothing you can do to stop a tide. And that is the flow of capital flowing into wind, solar, and storage now. It is truly unstoppable.
Yes, I saw a neat report come out of the UK from the Foresight Group, and they just looked at the resilience of various infrastructure technologies in the UK with COVID. And the most interesting piece of it to me, and I shared this on LinkedIn yesterday, was the financeability resilience. And when you look at the financeability, they showed that wind, solar, and storage were very near the top of financeability. Had to do with politics, has to do with other layers. And then the three bottom items on the financeability list: coal, gas, and nuclear, just gone. And I thought that was real interesting. Is that it's just interesting to see how this is evolving, and it makes me want to make sure my company is healthy and smart, so that as we grow, I can keep working, I can do stuff, and figure it out. I mean, that's my goal, is just to learn and grow and hopefully keep up with this massive machine, because change is coming. We're in the midst of it. The cash is flowing. The tide, as you said, is rising, and we are all going to be lifted if we're competent. So that's my big goal, is not to be a moron.
You brought a story to our attention. China peaking emissions prior to 2030 means an average of 250 gigawatts of solar per year by 2060. The link is to a Twitter story by Varun Sivaram, who's written a wonderful book, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's an okay book. I disagree with half of it, but it was a great book. He's a smart guy too. He's been in it for a long time. He, kind of neat. He grew up in a factory in Silicon Valley making solar panels that his dad designed, because his dad was a solar entrepreneur. And so Varun, VSiv, I just call him VSiv because I don't really know him, but I just know his Twitter handle. But it's just kind of neat with the type of perspective that a guy like that must have. And he's so young too. I mean, he must know so much about solar that he, he's probably forgotten as much as I've learned, because he's literally been in a solar factory since he was 10 years old. And that's pretty cool. So this, first off, China came out and said their goal for climate change is official. They want to peak their emissions before 2030, and they want to be at net zero by 2060. And that's 40 years. That sounds like a long, scary time, but it's not trivial. It's China saying that they want to do their part, and so that's cool. That's really cool. And part of this is talking about how much energy they're going to need to make. And to make that energy, it's going to take a massive manufacturing scale, because first off, they're not even done growing. They're still growing. They're still figuring out what the heck their country is going to be. And they're still economically growing. So they're going to use more and more energy. That's just it. They're going to have number of cars is going to double, triple. Number of large houses double, triple. Number of businesses, et cetera, et cetera. And how are they going to do it? Well, a whole bunch of it's going to come from solar. And of course, I'm self-interested. How much solar? Well, V-Civ there, he did a rough estimation saying, listen, if China has 250 gigawatts of solar installed now, and it produces this much electricity, and they need to get 500% more, then how much more solar is it? Well, roughly, it means 250 gigawatts a year for 40 years. Well, it's really going to curve and go up. But that volume of electricity, I mean, that's as much as, it's just a huge amount of electricity, a huge amount of solar. That's double what the whole world installs right now. And China's going to end up installing that much. And that's pretty cool.
I love this table because this table articulates the carbon bubble. If you're not familiar with Jeremy Rifkin's book, The Green New Deal, check it out. There's a great audiobook and a paperback. Rifkin has been traveling around the world consulting for the last 2 decades with governments like China and Germany and other European countries who have gotten serious about the Green New Deal actually 10 years before us. But look at this: coal minus 96%, natural gas minus 75%, oil minus 65%, hydro plus 50%, biomass plus 100%, wind plus 346%, nuclear plus 382%, hopefully next generation nuclear, not the kind at Fukushima that blows up, and solar at 587%. People, if you're interested in the energy industry, this is your guide, okay? Where China's going is where the earth is going. And this is eye-popping growth.
I like that number right below it, 15 trillion in the next 30 years.
Yes.
That's like 30 or 40 Jeff Bezoses.
Yeah, isn't he approaching $1 trillion or something like that?
I don't know about approaching. He's at like 150 billion. Come on.
Okay.
That's it. Jeez.
All right. Well,
my favorite thing about Jeff Bezos these days is that he has a hobby that's $1 billion a year, and it's called Blue Origin. He sells $1 billion a year of stock and puts it in his spaceship company.
Right.
I want $1 billion a year hobby. Tim, can you help me with that?
No problem.
Sure, you got it. I'll send my my routing number, my account number via text message in a few minutes. Thanks, Tim.
I'm good for something. Oh man. All right, so couple stories to wrap up. Floating wind and hydrogen. What the heck is this? I don't know anything about this except it probably involves the Norwegians.
In this one, it's the Scots offshore, and it might be the Norwegians, but you'd have to click on it and get into it. What's neat, so there's a couple of good articles, or a really great article that was very technical that I enjoyed. It showed some pictures, because who doesn't like pictures? But really, they're going to build a floating. Well, first off, we got floating wind, so old news. Yeah, floating wind is now old news. That's awesome. Now we're going to have floating hydrogen generation at a floating wind facility. This first plant's going to be only 2 megawatts, so smallish, but nonetheless, we're going to have a set of hardware sitting in the ocean right underneath the wind turbine. And what it's going to do is first desalinate the water, and then using its electrolysis, turn that water into hydrogen and off-putting the oxygen right into the atmosphere, I guess. And first off, that's sweet. And then they're going to have a pipe that pumps it online and goes straight into the infrastructure. Yeah, so there's a great image of, just a rough image. There's a second one after that, which is cool too. And, we're now going to have floating hydrogen production. You want to know why the big oil majors are really interested, why Orsted said, hey, we don't need to manufacture gas anymore because we can manufacture hydrogen in the exact same manner. And I think one thing that the fossil entities are going to attempt to force, and it may be a good thing, is they're going to push hydrogen over energy storage. And so you're going to see a lot of positive hydrogen press left and right. Clean hydrogen, wonderful hydrogen. And it's going to be the same type of marketing that you saw for like natural gas and for cigarettes back in the 60s, because it's the same group of people, the advertising companies. And, you know, that may be good for us, but they're going to do their best to manipulate us away from energy storage, because energy storage doesn't jive with these energy companies, and because they want to produce a product that you're addicted to. Whereas energy storage, they're just going to sell it to you and you're gone. So there. We'll watch. I'm really interested to watch. I think hydrogen and batteries will fight well, but it's really sweet to think that we could do hard, storable liquid fuel production right there in the open ocean and then pump it online or onshore, because, you know, that might limit some risk too. You know, if a fire occurs, an explosion occurs out in the ocean, of course, that's, you know, tens of millions of dollars in damage, but at least there'll be, you know, few to no human beings involved. And that's, that really matters. So cool tech. I like it.
Yeah, I think green hydrogen is going to be a thing. It's very early days. I'm not sure that we're quite there for hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, maybe in certain applications. The big thing is the infrastructure, right? You got to have hydrogen infrastructure the way we have natural gas infrastructure, for example. Totally technically doable. It just has to be built out. But I'm all for it. Making green hydrogen makes sense. Water is super abundant, covers 80% of the earth, and you can make hydrogen by splitting H2O into hydrogen and oxygen. Harken back to high school chemistry. All right. Tesla is selling semis to Walmart. And, you know, Walmart apparently placed a small order a year ago, but now they've ordered 130 not Cybertrucks, but Tesla semis, excuse me. Elon Musk.
Cyber semis. We'll have cyber
yeah, the
semis.
cyber semi. Here's the Tesla semi, and you know, it's gratifying to it's gratifying to know that Tesla actually has the chops to design new vehicles and bring them to market, unlike some of its naysayers and competitors. What is I'm forgetting the name, but what is the name of the fuel cell semi truck maker?
Who?
That also.
What guy?
Sorry?
What guy? That guy that's not even employed anymore? Who? It was Nikola. And you know what? I'm a little pissed off because he turned out to be a fraud and got $3 billion. And that really pisses me off. He should be in a cell.
GM's investment was $7 billion. It was a big investment. Yeah, it's interesting that such an established company as GM could be duped into investing in a fraudulent company. I mean, we'll see.
Yes.
Market, but yeah, the implosion has occurred, and but the semi is coming. I don't know when what Tesla's saying now about the release date, but Walmart thinks it's real, and like we saw with Rivian, you know, and Amazon investing in Rivian, you know, Rivian has a plant here in Central Illinois in Bloomington Normal, and they're gearing up for real manufacturing. So there will be a real pickup truck coming out of them, and then a platform for light duty, like delivery trucks, which is what Amazon wants to make. So the EV revolution is still very, very young, but these trucks are going to have a 500-mile range, right? So that's plenty of range. After you drive 500 miles, you want to take a break and have a cup of coffee and a sandwich, or take a nap, and you can't just keep going.
Walmart recently put out a net zero corporate goal, and including transportation. So expect Walmart to have a broad fleet of net zero, well, probably of zero emission vehicles, not net zero. Uh,
Yeah.
maybe the fact that they're starting with Teslas is awesome. They'll probably sign deals with Rivian. They'll probably sign deals with Mac. They'll sign deals with everybody because they're a big buyer like that. And there'll be different truck types. They'll have short haul, long haul, uh, yard trucks. There's going to be a whole variety of these vehicles that come out. And I keep wondering if we'll get longer haul trucks as the batteries get smaller, less volume, higher density, and maybe we'll even put some in the shipping back so that you can have 1,000-mile truck that has an automated driver and you can have 9 straight hours of driving, because there's a lot of rules about how many hours truck drivers can cover during certain periods. And I've seen trucks that have 2 drivers so that they can go for 16 hours straight, move product a little further, a little faster. So there'll be variations on these. And, weight matters. Our roads are made a certain way, so the battery will have to balance out product. But if you can move 10% more product because you can go further and refuel fast and it's cleaner, maybe there'll be a logic there. I don't know how it works. I'm not a trucking guy, but everything I hear says that the upkeep of an electric vehicle is so much cheaper than an ICE vehicle. And that alone was probably going to be a non-trivial thing for these companies and profit margins. And so I'm interested in that. I'm interested in watching. It's going to be big market. No questions asked.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine how big both the EV and the grid storage market is going to be. But basically, harken back to that table on the Chinese market, and those are the types of statistics we're talking about. Basically all of the fossil fuels in transportation and in grid energy in the next 3-4 decades are going bye-bye.
Have you heard there's a city sorry to interrupt you there, but there's a city in China that has nothing but electric buses and large vehicles. Shizhuan, possibly. I can't remember the city, but it has like 12, 13, 15,000 buses. And that means they're developing a citywide infrastructure to manage this. And it's not just putting a bus in chargers. You have to have repairmen. You have to have part components. You have to have just things I probably don't grasp yet. But you just got to have a different infrastructure to manage new hardware, more electricians. Your car repair people are just going to be different people, and that's really interesting. So this is all going to scale and roll slowly. California, we didn't even mention it, but California said that 100% EVs for new car sales is coming, for new vehicle sales is coming in 2035. So I mean, it's coming hard. And if California is going to do it, Massachusetts will follow. No questions asked. New York will follow. So
yeah, you have to be careful with that California executive order. I was drilling down a little bit on that recently, and it's a good order. I'm all for it. It includes plug-in hybrids.
Okay.
So Toyota, for example, is well known in the plug-in hybrid space now. Hyundai as well, Nissan as well. Honda. I mean, most of the auto manufacturers now have plug-in hybrids. The Toyota RAV4, for example, their higher end plug-in hybrid, it can go 40 miles on pure EV. And then of course it can go 600 miles on a tank of fuel and the battery. There's a nice breakdown of the Model Y versus the RAV4 on a YouTube channel called TFL. So check that out. I'm showing a picture of the Hornsdale battery here, and we'll close with this, John.
Yeah.
Hornsdale, it was a big gamble at the beginning because Elon Musk made a big splash by saying, hey, if I don't install this battery in 3 months or something crazy like that, I'll give it to you, right?
Free. It's like 60 million.
Yep. He really put his company's ability to deliver on the line. And that is that is a really insane move. But when you're able to deliver it, then people sit up and notice. And Hornsdale has been making money for Australia hand over fist.
Yep.
The battery is overperforming. So they under promise, over deliver. That is the Tesla mantra. And innovation is the moat. That's another saying I love of Elon Musk's. Innovation is a moat. That is how they are going to fight off their competition. And I think they're spot on.
So, you know what occurred with this event? You're right about there, actually. Right, that paragraph where it starts off with Australia's renew economy at the bottom. So the battery, we actually had an event. Well, Australia, not we, but we, the royal we, had an event where a power line was knocked down during a massive windstorm, and this battery made huge sums of money during the period. I think the last quarter, just keeping up with it. And because this battery kept the local South Australia power grid stable. And you can see right there where the event starts, where the amount of the cost of energy and what occurred. And literally that period is where this battery just started absorbing everything it could and outputting everything it could. And it was able to save the grid for a significant number of people, and it made a lot of money. And and they say that unless another calamity occurs, you won't see the amount of money made as this quarter. But in prior quarters, this battery's already covered its cost. The company that owns it, Neon, they're a French group. I think
they just say neon, but I don't know.
Neon, okay. But it's French. You got to say it cool. It's be like Neon, something. I don't know. Some French person's going to beat me up the next time they see me, massacring their beautiful language. Neon, something cool. But they're doing well financially. This battery's good money, and and this grid needs it. But the politics I hear coming out of Australia are just as whack as some of the politics we have up here in the U.S. So I feel for those folks. I mean, they got a life. They got a life all their own. I want to visit Australia. I just want to drink with some Australians because it just seems like a good bunch of folks to drink with.
Well, John, we're at the end of our hour. I want to let our listeners know that the Clean Power Hour is brought to you every week by Continental Energy Solutions, myself, Tim Montague, your co-host, and I'm so grateful for my co-host, you, John Weaver. Thanks for joining us. And you can find all of our episodes on YouTube. Just Google John Weaver, Tim Montague on YouTube. You'll find the Clean Power Hour. Please subscribe to the show. Give us a thumbs up, hit that bell so you get all the notifications. And now you can find all the content at Continental's website as well, cesnrg.com/videos. And don't forget to check out the podcast also. We have pre-registered events there. How can people reach you, John?
Commercial Solar Guy. Just type it into any search engine you got. You'll find me on many, many formats, LinkedIn, Twitter, my website. If you go to my website, commercialsolarguy.com, find the contact us form. You can see some projects we've built. We're mostly located in the Northeast USA. We can build your projects. We can consult on it. And I'm a really nice guy. And so, what's better than that?
I can attest to that. Check it out. Commercial Solar Guy. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And let's grow solar and storage. Take care, John.
See you, Tim.